Looked like a home. It looked like a mausoleum where something dangerous still breathed. Lena Cross stood at the iron gates at midnight, her portfolio clutched against her chest like a shield that wouldn't stop bullets. The estate stretched before her, Gothic spires clawing at a moonless sky, windows that reflected nothing, gardens so precise they seemed hostile. Armed men flanked the entrance, their eyes tracking her with the professional detachment of people who'd buried bodies before breakfast. She shouldn't be here. Every instinct screamed at her to run. But the eviction notice crumpled in her jacket pocket whispered louder. 3 days until she lost her apartment, her mother's hospital calling twice daily about outstanding balances. The experimental treatment that was her mother's last chance, $50,000 she didn't have and never would. Unless she walked through these gates. A guard led her inside without speaking. The hallways were lined with priceless art, Caravaggio, Vermeer, works that belonged in museums, not private collections. Between the paintings, she noticed other stains. Darker, rust-colored against white marble. No one had bothered to hide them. They stopped at double doors carved with angels that looked more like demons. The room beyond stole her breath. A private gallery, cathedral-high ceilings, and there, on an easel under surgical lighting, a damaged Renaissance masterpiece. A Madonna with a child, the paint cracked and weeping, centuries of neglect screaming from every brushstroke. But Lena barely saw the painting. Because standing before it, back turned, was a man who made the room feel smaller just by existing. They say you're the best. His voice was smoke and expensive whiskey, never raising above conversation, but somehow filling every corner. I say, you're just desperate enough to work for me. He didn't turn around. Didn't need to. Lena felt his presence like pressure against her skin. Something hot and stupid flared in her chest, the same reckless anger that had gotten her thrown out of 3 foster homes and nearly killed twice on the streets. And you're just rich enough to think that matters. The silence that followed had teeth. Guns clicked. She heard them behind her, beside her, sounds that meant she'd just signed something she couldn't take back. Then he turned. Dante Moretti was younger than she expected. Mid-30s, dark hair touched with silver at the temples, a face that Renaissance masters would have fought to capture. Beautiful in the way poisonous things were beautiful. Dangerous in the way gravity was dangerous. Inevitable. Inescapable. His eyes were black coffee and old sins. His lips curved into something between a smile and a threat. You just made the most interesting mistake of your life. 3 words just changed her life forever. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, and trust me, you won't believe what he does next. Hit that subscribe button because this story gets dangerously addictive. Lena didn't sleep that first night. How could she when armed men stood outside her assigned room? A guest suite decorated in cream and gold that felt more like a gilded cage, when every shadow might hide someone sent to make sure she never left? She lay in silk sheets that cost more than her monthly rent and thought about the girl she'd been. 12 years old, standing in her 7th foster home, learning that pretty words from adults meant nothing. That survival required teeth, required knowing when to bow your head and when to bite. Art had saved her then. A social worker noticed her sketching on cafeteria napkins, copying masterworks from library books with obsessive precision. Got her into a program, taught her that broken things could be made beautiful again if you were patient enough, careful enough, willing to see past the damage to what lived underneath. Her mother had been her first restoration project. A woman destroyed by a man she wouldn't name, a rape she survived but never recovered from. Lena spent her childhood watching her mother flinch at shadows, rebuilding her piece by piece with every "I love you and you're safe now." Then came the cancer diagnosis 6 months ago, except now Lena wondered if it was ever really cancer at all. She pushed the thought away. Too big. Too impossible. Dawn came, and with it Marco. He was a wall of a man, scar tissue where his left eyebrow should be, hands that had clearly broken things that didn't break easily. Dante's right hand, his shadow, his executioner. You eat, you work, you don't talk to anyone but me or him. You don't look at things that aren't your business. You don't ask questions. Marco's voice was gravel and graveyards. You leave when the job is done and you forget everything you saw here. Lena met his eyes. And if I don't? Then you don't leave. He walked her to the gallery. Dante was already there, conducting business on a phone call that sounded like someone begging, and Dante deciding whether their family lived or died. He did it while drinking espresso, studying financial reports, radiating the casual control of someone who'd been making life and death decisions since before he could legally drink. Marco briefed him in Italian. Dante's eyes flicked to Lena once, a glance that felt like being x-rayed, then dismissed her with a nod. She should have been relieved. Instead, something in her chest twisted with an emotion she didn't want to name. Work became her sanctuary. The painting was a 16th century Raphael study, a Madonna holding her child with such tender devastation it made Lena's throat tight. Someone had damaged it deliberately. Knife cuts through the Virgin's face, burns around the child's hands, violence against beauty, methodical and personal. As she worked, cleaning centuries of grime, stabilizing the paint, slowly revealing the masterpiece underneath, she felt eyes on her. Dante watched from across the room, conducting his empire of blood and money while she conducted her small resurrections. Sometimes their eyes met. Neither looked away first. On the third night, working alone under gallery lights, he appeared beside her without sound. "Why do you do this?" His voice was closer than she'd ever heard it, almost gentle, almost curious. She didn't look up from the delicate stroke of her brush. Because broken things deserve a second chance, even the ones people think are beyond saving. The silence stretched. When she finally glanced at him, something in his expression made her breath catch. He was looking at her the way she looked at the painting, like something damaged, something beautiful, something that might be saved if someone cared enough to try. That's when the first thread of danger wrapped around her heart, soft as silk, strong as steel, impossible to escape. Isabella arrived the next morning, elegant and cold as winter. She handed Lena an envelope without smiling. "Your advance payment. Finish quickly. This house has a way of keeping things that stay too long." It sounded like a warning. It felt like a threat. The gunfire started at 2 a.m. Alone in the gallery, working by lamplight, when the first explosion shattered the east wing windows. The building shook. Alarms screamed. Then came the sound that would haunt her dreams, automatic weapons turning the night into thunder. She dropped to the floor on instinct, the same instinct that had kept her alive in foster homes where violence arrived without warning. Her hands were still holding a restoration brush. Ridiculous. Useless. The gallery doors burst open. Dante's men poured in, formation perfect, weapons raised. Marco barked orders in Italian. Someone shoved Lena behind a marble column just as bullets chewed through the doorframe where her head had been. Then she saw him. Dante moved through chaos like he was born in it. No panic, no hesitation. A man in a suit raised a gun. Dante broke his wrist, took the weapon, put 3 bullets in him before the body hit the ground. Clean, efficient, terrifying. He wasn't a man in that moment. He was a force of nature wearing human skin. More attackers flooded in. Dante killed them with the cold precision of someone who'd stopped counting bodies years ago. Blood sprayed across Renaissance paintings. Priceless art became collateral damage. He didn't even blink. Lena couldn't breathe, couldn't think. This was the reality of the man she'd been orbiting, this violence, this darkness, this absolute absence of mercy. Then someone grabbed her from behind, an arm around her throat, gun to her temple. A voice in accented English, "Moretti, the girl or your life?" Everything stopped. Dante turned slowly, blood on his hands, death in his eyes. He looked at Lena, really looked at her, and she saw something crack in that impenetrable armor. "Let her go." His voice was ice and razor blades. "Last chance. Victor wants the coordinates. Give us the painting and we—" Dante shot him through the eye. The man holding Lena died before his finger could twitch. She felt his body drop, felt Dante's hands catch her before she fell with him, felt the world tilt sideways as shock set in. When she could see again, the gallery was a graveyard. Bodies everywhere. Marco barking orders for cleanup. Dante's security team sweeping for remaining threats. And Dante, dragging her to his private office with barely contained fury. He slammed the door, locked it, turned on her with eyes that could burn cities. "The painting." His voice was barely controlled violence. "You've been uncovering coordinates hidden in the layers. Viktor Zakharov wants them. They lead to a vault, evidence that could destroy empires, mine included. Your restoration work has been revealing them piece by piece. Lena's mind reeled. I didn't know. They know you matter to me, like broken glass, which means you can't leave. Ever. I don't matter to you. She heard the words from far away, her own voice strange and hollow. I'm just a job. Dante crossed the space between them in 2 strides. Close enough that she could see gold flecks in those dark eyes. Close enough to feel heat radiating from him. Adrenaline and fury and something deeper, more dangerous. If you were just a job, Karamia, you'd already be dead. His voice dropped to velvet menace. The fact that you're breathing proves exactly how much you matter. He reached up, fingers ghosting across her cheek. She flinched, then realized he was wiping away blood from a cut she hadn't felt. His touch lingered. Gentle, impossible. Neither pulled away. I can't stay here. But even she heard how weak it sounded. You can't leave. They'll kill you. I'll kill anyone who tries. His thumb traced her jawline. Choose, Lena. Run and die in 24 hours. Or stay and live in my darkness. The choice wasn't really a choice, but she'd make him pay for it. When this is over, you pay for my mother's treatment. Every penny. In full. Something that might have been respect flickered in his eyes. Deal. But when this is over, you'll owe me something far more valuable than money. Outside the office, Marco's voice called urgency. Inside, Lena realized she'd just sold her soul to the devil. And the worst part? She wasn't sure she regretted it. 3 days trapped in luxury felt like drowning in silk. Lena worked on the painting with armed guards rotating shifts around her. Dante worked across the room, conducting his empire through encrypted calls and coded conversations. Violence and art, existing in parallel. She listened to him order executions while she resurrected beauty. The contradiction should have repulsed her. It didn't. That was the problem. The coordinates were revealing themselves in the painting's underlayers, numbers hidden in the Virgin's robe folds, encrypted in the brushstrokes of a master dead 400 years. Someone had used art as a vault, genius and terrifying. On the 4th night at 3 a.m., Dante appeared beside her workspace with 2 cups of coffee. He set one down. Steam rose between them. Black, no sugar. She stared at him. How did you? I noticed things. He took a sip of his own, eyes never leaving hers. You don't sleep either. Hard to sleep when people are trying to kill you. You get used to it. Said with such casual darkness it made her chest hurt. I haven't slept through a full night since I was 12. She shouldn't ask, shouldn't care. But curiosity, that reckless thing that had always gotten her in trouble, won. Why? That's when I watched my father beat my mother to death. He said it like commenting on weather. This painting was in her room, her favorite. I was hiding behind it when it happened, saw everything through the crack in the frame. Lena's breath stopped. The painting between them suddenly felt like a gravestone. She died protecting you. It wasn't a question. She died because I existed, because my father was a monster, and she loved me more than she feared him. Dante's jaw tightened. This painting is all I have left of love, the only proof it was ever real. The vulnerability in those words undid something in her. She set down her brush with shaking hands. I spent my whole life being invisible, she whispered. Easier to survive when no one sees you. Now I'm seen, and it might kill me. Dante moved closer. Not touching, but close enough that she felt electricity in the space between them. Being invisible didn't protect you, Lena. Being seen by me will. The intensity in his voice made her dizzy, made her want impossible things. Then Marco burst in, tablet in hand, face grim. We intercepted communications. Isabella leaked everything to Victor. Lena's presence, the coordinates, your interest. She's gone. Joined his organization. Dante's expression went arctic. Find her. There's more. Marco turned the tablet. A photo. Lena's mother in a hospital bed, surrounded by men in suits that screamed violence. Text below. Trade. Lena lunged for the door. Dante caught her, arms like iron bands. Let me go. She fought him with everything she had. Street fighting dirty, no rules, pure desperation. They have my mother. And they'll have you if you walk into that trap. He pinned her against the wall, body pressed to hers, both breathing hard. You think I'll let you sacrifice yourself? You think I'd survive watching them take you? This isn't about you. Everything about you is about me now. His voice cracked with something raw and uncontrolled. You think I'm keeping you here for information? For safety? I'm keeping you here because the thought of you leaving makes me dangerous even to myself. The world narrowed to inches between them, his breath on her lips, her pulse thundering, the gravity pulling them together, inevitable and terrifying. They leaned in. Boss? Marco's voice cut through like a knife. Victor moved her mother. Unknown location. We have nothing. Dante closed his eyes, released Lena slowly, deliberately. When he looked at her again, she saw a man capable of burning the world down. Then we find them, he said quietly. All of them. And we end this. The coordinates led to a church that God had abandoned decades ago. St. Cecilia's stood in the industrial district, surrounded by rusted warehouses and broken glass. Its stained glass windows were shattered eyes, its doors chained shut, its stone walls covered in graffiti prayers no one answered. Dante's team cut through the chains at dawn. Lena followed him into darkness that smelled of rot and forgotten incense. Marco and 3 men swept the perimeter. Their footsteps echoed like heartbeats in a corpse. The vault was beneath the altar, hidden behind a false stone that only revealed itself when Lena pressed the coordinate sequence into worn carvings. Ancient mechanism, modern lock. The door opened with a sigh that sounded like confession. Inside, filing cabinets, banker's boxes, decades of evidence preserved in climate-controlled darkness. Dante opened the first file. His face went to stone. What is it? Lena moved beside him, read over his shoulder, and felt reality crack. Government officials, police chiefs, judges, all on payroll, but not just Dante's father's payroll, Victor's father too. A partnership, a conspiracy that had trafficked weapons to war zones, moved contraband through legal channels, and Lena's hands shook as she pulled another file. Women, children, names, dates, destinations, human trafficking on an industrial scale. My father wasn't just a criminal. Dante's voice was hollow. He was part of something so much worse. Lena kept reading. Scanning names, searching for something she didn't want to find but knew was there. Then she saw it, her mother's name, 20 years ago, witnessed a shipment, identified faces, had to be silenced, but publicly, so it looked natural. Slow poisoning, cancer that wasn't cancer. They've been killing her for 20 years. Lena's voice broke on the words. My whole life they've been. Lena, Dante's hand on her shoulder, gentle, grounding. This changes everything. Isabella knew. She orchestrated your hiring, knowing your skills, your mother's connection, that you'd lead us here eventually. Why? Why me? Dante pulled another file, opened it with shaking hands. Inside, a photograph. A man who looked like Dante, but wrong, handsome features twisted by cruelty, eyes that enjoyed pain. Dante's voice was gravel and broken glass. My brother, he was more than a traitor to the family. 22 years ago, his jaw clenched. Your mother, the rape, it was him. The world tilted. Lena grabbed the filing cabinet to stay upright. You're saying Alessandro was your biological father. I killed him 3 years ago, not just for betraying the family, for what he did to your mother, for abandoning you, for being a monster I couldn't let live. Lena stared at him. You killed my father. I killed a monster. Dante's eyes were molten, raw, stripped of every defense, and I'd do it again, every single time. Something in Lena snapped, or maybe came together. All the fear and anger and impossible attraction she'd been fighting. She grabbed his jacket, pulled him down, and kissed him like drowning. He responded with equal desperation. Hands in her hair, bodies pressed together. A kiss that was war and surrender, fury and forgiveness, everything they couldn't say in words. They broke apart, breathing hard, foreheads touching. Gunfire erupted outside. Dante shoved her behind him, weapon drawn. Marco's voice on comms, ambush, 20 hostiles, Victor's men. Chaos, bullets tearing through ancient stone. Dante fighting like something unleashed, trying to reach her, protect her, keep her. Strong hands grabbed Lena from behind. She fought, screamed his name, Lena. Dante's roar was primal, anguished. She saw him kill 3 men trying to reach her, saw blood spray across his face, saw desperation she'd never seen in anyone's eyes. Then a van door slammed shut, engine roaring, tires screaming. Through the back window, the last thing she saw was Dante, covered in blood, on his knees, watching her disappear into Victor's hands. Viktor Zakharov's fortress wasn't what Lena expected. It looked like a luxury hotel. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, art that probably belonged in museums. Beautiful, civilized. The kind of place where monsters wore $1,000 suits and committed atrocities with manicured hands. They put her in a room with a view. Locked door, armed guards, but comfortable, almost kind. That scared her more than dungeons would have. Victor came at sunset. Tall, silver-haired, grandfatherly smile that never reached his eyes. He sat across from her like they were having tea. I'm not going to hurt you, Lena. His voice was cultured, almost gentle. I'm going to show you the truth. He turned on a screen. Footage rolled. Dante, younger, colder, executing a man begging for his family. Dante ordering a building burned, families inside screaming. Dante's empire built on bones and ashes. Crime after crime after crime, documented in high definition. This is the man you're protecting. Victor's voice was reasonable poison. Villages destroyed, children orphaned, families shattered, all for power, for control, for an empire built on suffering. Lena's stomach churned. She'd known Dante was dangerous. But seeing it, watching him kill without hesitation, order death like commenting on weather, made it visceral, real, undeniable. Help me destroy him, Victor said softly. Testify. Give me the evidence from the vault. In exchange, I'll cure your mother. The real cure, not the poison masquerading as treatment. I'll give you both new identities. Freedom, safety, a life without blood. Could she love a man capable of such darkness? The question haunted her through the night, through the next day, through footage of more crimes, more death, more evidence that Dante Moretti was exactly the monster the world called him. But another question haunted her more. Who made him that monster? Meanwhile, across the city, Dante was coming apart. Marco had seen him survive impossible situations, had watched him face death without flinching, had never ever seen him like this. Dante tore through his own organization, hunting for information, beat allies for not knowing enough, took risks that bordered on suicidal, stopped eating, stopped pretending to sleep. Boss, you need to think strategically. I don't need strategy. Dante's roar made grown men flinch. I need her back, I need... He stopped, breathing hard, something broken in his eyes. When he spoke again, his voice was quiet, terrifying in its honesty. She's not leverage, Marco. She's not a weakness. She's the only thing that makes this life feel like more than survival. Without her, I'm just... He gestured at the blood on his hands, the empire of darkness surrounding him. I'm just this. And I don't want to be just this anymore. Marco had served the Moretti family for 20 years. He'd never heard anything like that. Then we get her back, Marco said simply, whatever it costs. The plan was suicide dressed as negotiation. Dante would trade himself for Lena and her mother, walk into Victor's fortress, give himself up, hope his own death bought their freedom. Marco tried to argue. Dante wouldn't hear it. Some things are worth dying for, he said. I just never thought I'd find one. In her locked room, Lena made her choice. When Victor came for her answer, she looked him in the eyes. You're right. Dante's a monster, but monsters are made, not born. And I'd rather stand with a monster trying to become human than a human who's proud to be a monster. Victor's grandfather's smile vanished. Foolish girl. Maybe, but I've been a fool before. At least this time I'm choosing it. The guard who'd been subtly helping her, leaving doors unlocked, providing information, stepped forward then, removing his mask. She recognized him from Dante's compound, one of his trusted men. Her blood went cold. Did you really think, the guard said, Victor's spy all along, that we'd make this easy? Did you really think, the guard said, Victor's spy all along, that we'd make this easy? Outside in the fortress courtyard, Dante arrived. Alone, unarmed, surrounded by guns. Victor smiled from his balcony. The trap was set, and both of them had walked right in. The docks at midnight smelled like rust and dead fish and the last breaths of desperate men. Dante stood in the center of the abandoned warehouse, flanked by Marco and 2 guards, all that remained of his once mighty army. Around them, Victor's forces formed a circle of guns and malice. 30 men, maybe more. Shadows with weapons, waiting for the order to kill. Victor descended from a catwalk like a king approaching peasants. Lena was dragged behind him, hands bound, but her eyes were fury and calculation. Moretti. Victor's voice echoed off rusted metal. You came. How touching. How suicidal. Let them go. Dante's voice was steady despite the odds. Her mother. I'll give you the evidence, the empire, everything. Just let them live. Victor laughed. It sounded like grinding bones. I don't want your empire. I want you destroyed piece by piece, starting with what you love. He nodded to the guard holding Lena. The man raised his gun to her head. Time crystallized. Dante lunged forward. The guard screamed. Lena twisted, the knife she'd stolen hours ago buried in his throat. She'd been working the ropes raw against metal edges all day, playing helpless while preparing. The guard dropped. She grabbed his gun with hands slick with his blood. "I'm really tired," she said, voice deadly calm, "of men deciding whether I live or die." Chaos erupted. Marco shouted a signal in Russian, and half of Victor's men turned their weapons on the other half. The betrayal had been theater. Marco had been infiltrating Victor's organization for weeks, turning his people, building a trap within a trap. The mole in Dante's organization, the helpful guard, died first, Marco's bullet finding him before he could fire. Then it was war. Dante fought like something unleashed. Lena moved beside him, not behind him, shooting, dodging, covering his blind spots. She'd survived predators her whole life. This was just another fight, just higher stakes. She saw him at his most brutal, efficient, merciless, a killer who'd been forged in violence and never learned another language. And she wasn't afraid. He saw her drop 2 men with precise shots, disarm another with a move she'd learned in foster care, survive when survival seemed impossible. Not a victim. Never a victim. A warrior who'd been forced to hide her teeth until now. "Behind you," she screamed. Dante spun, fired. The man dropped. "Left," he roared. She ducked, rolled, came up shooting. Another body. They moved like partners who'd been fighting together for years instead of minutes. Reading each other, trusting each other. 2 people who understood survival at the bone-deep level where words became unnecessary. In the chaos, Lena realized something that should have terrified her but didn't. She wasn't afraid of his darkness anymore. She was standing in it, making her own choices, wielding her own power. Not despite who he was, but understanding exactly who he was and choosing him anyway. Dante realized it too, watching her fight with fierce competence. She didn't need saving. She never had. She'd needed someone who wouldn't try to make her smaller, safer, less than what she was. Victor ran. Dante moved to chase. Then the building shook. Explosives. Victor's insurance policy. "Everyone out!" Marco's bellow barely audible over the groaning metal. The ceiling collapsed in sections. Concrete and steel rained like the end of the world. Dante grabbed Lena, shielded her with his body as debris crashed around them. Trapped in a pocket of space as the warehouse became a tomb. She was pressed against his chest, his arms locked around her, both of them bleeding, breathing hard, alive against impossible odds. "I love you." The words torn from him like confession. "And I'm sorry I couldn't be the man who deserved you." Lena grabbed his face with bloody hands. Looked into eyes that held more darkness than any one person should carry. "Shut up and live," she said fiercely. "Because I love you too, and we're finishing this together." Above them, metal groaned. Marco's voice calling their names. A gap in the rubble. They climbed toward light together. They survived the collapse with cracked ribs, lacerations, and something that felt dangerously like hope. Marco's forces secured the perimeter. Lena's mother was found in Victor's medical facility, weak but alive, finally receiving real treatment instead of slow poison. The reunion was tears and whispered apologies and promises Lena intended to keep. But Victor had escaped in the chaos. And they had 24 hours before he disappeared into the network of safe houses and false identities that men like him always prepared. Dante's intelligence network tracked him to a private airfield outside the city. Last-ditch escape. Jet-fueled and ready. One final chance to end this. But first, Lena made a choice that would change everything. In the safe house, laptop open, she looked at Dante across the room. He was bandaged, exhausted, still covered in someone else's blood, still beautiful in the way broken things could be beautiful. "I'm uploading the evidence," she said quietly. "All of it. To every news outlet, every law enforcement agency, every government database I can find. The whole conspiracy, every name." Dante went very still. "That includes evidence against me." "I know. You'll destroy what's left of my empire. I'll face charges, prison, maybe life." "I know." She met his eyes. "But empires built on suffering deserve to fall, including yours. I'm not saving you from consequences. I'm freeing you from a throne you never wanted." For a long moment, he just stared at her. She couldn't read his expression. Betrayal, anger, something that might have been relief. "You just destroyed me," he said finally. "No." Lena's voice was steady. "I just freed you. No more empire to protect, no more throne to defend. Just you, just us. and a choice about who you want to become. Her finger hovered over the enter key. Dante crossed the room, put his hand over hers, pressed down together. The files uploaded. The conspiracy went public. The world exploded with breaking news. Politicians arrested, crime lords fleeing, decades of corruption exposed in real time. Dante's empire began crumbling before they reached the airfield. He didn't seem to care. Victor was alone at the hangar. No army, no backup. Just a desperate man and a private jet, minutes from escape. Moretti, he spun, weapon drawn. Come to watch your world burn? That girl destroyed you. She freed me. Dante's voice was calm, almost peaceful. I'm done killing for an empire I hate, done being a monster because it's all I knew. You want to know the difference between us, Victor? He set down his gun. Marco hissed in protest. Lena's heart stopped. I'm choosing to be something different, and you're choosing to stay exactly what you've always been. Victor laughed, bitter and broken. We're the same. Killers. Monsters. She'll never truly. He raised his weapon toward Dante. Lena fired first. Clean shot. Center mass. Victor dropped, eyes wide with surprise, dying on the concrete like any other man. She walked to him, gun steady, voice steady. You were wrong. I don't accept him despite the darkness. I accept him because he's trying to become something better. That's more than you ever did. Victor's last breath rattled out. No empire, no legacy, just another body on a runway, forgotten before he was cold. The conspiracy's exposure triggered a domino effect. Politicians resigned, crime families scattered, Dante's organization dissolved, his lieutenants either arrested or disappeared. He turned himself in that morning, walked into a federal building with Marco beside him, ready to face accountability for decades of crimes. Before they took him, he looked at Lena one last time. Wait for me, he said, not a command, a question. She took his hand, squeezed once. However long it takes. We finish this together, remember? They led him away in handcuffs. She watched until he disappeared through the doors, carrying the weight of his past toward an uncertain future. But for the first time in either of their lives, it was a future they'd chosen. 6 months changed everything. Lena's mother lived in a cottage by the sea now, white shutters and garden beds she tended with hands that had forgotten how to shake. The poison was gone from her system, replaced with clean blood and second chances. She painted watercolors on the porch, landscapes that remembered beauty instead of fear. He saved my life, she told Lena during a visit, sunshine making her look 10 years younger. That man you love. Before everything fell apart, he arranged my treatment. Made sure I'd survive even if he didn't. Lena knew. She'd always known. Dante had been planning his own destruction from the moment he'd met her, choosing her life over his empire. In 1,000 small ways she was only now beginning to understand. The trials were media spectacles. Dante testified against everyone, politicians, crime lords, corrupt officials, turned state's witness, chose accountability over escape, 3 years in minimum security with possibility of early parole, a gift for cooperation. A future that wasn't a death sentence. Before sentencing, he had 1 year of provisional freedom. They spent it learning how to be human. A small apartment in a neighborhood where no one knew their names. Lena opened a restoration studio, modest, quiet, fixing broken things one brushstroke at a time. Dante volunteered at a youth center for foster kids, teaching them that survival didn't have to mean becoming the monsters who hurt them. It was awkward, strange, beautiful in ways violence had never been. On his last night of freedom, they sat on their building's rooftop, the city lights spread below them like fallen stars. I'll understand if you don't wait for me. Dante's voice was quiet, giving her an exit she'd never take. 3 years. Lena took his hand, laced their fingers together. I waited my whole life to find someone who sees me completely and doesn't look away. I can wait 3 more years. He kissed her then, soft and desperate and tender all at once. They made love on the rooftop under stars that had watched empires rise and fall, watched monsters become men, watched love survive impossible odds. Afterward, holding her close, Dante Moretti whispered against her hair. Remember when I said you'd only remember one word? I was wrong about which word it would be. Not more pain, not more fear, more love, more hope, more life. That's what I want to give you now. More of everything good. Lena pressed her face against his chest, listening to his heartbeat, memorizing the rhythm. Then come back to me and give me more. Every day, for the rest of our lives. 3 years later, Lena waited outside the prison gates, heart thundering, hands steady. The doors opened. Dante walked out, thinner, lines around his eyes that hadn't been there before, but whole, free, alive. Their eyes met. The world narrowed to just them. He crossed to her in 5 strides, pulled her close, kissed her like breathing after drowning. Marco waited by the car, grinning. A fresh start. The past acknowledged, scars visible, but no longer bleeding. Lena pulled back just enough to see his face. So what now? Dante smiled. Real, unguarded, the smile of a man who'd walked through hell and chosen light on the other side. More. They walked toward the car hand in hand, toward a future built on choices instead of chains, toward more mornings and more laughter and more quiet moments that didn't need violence to feel real. More life, more love, more everything. Together.